Hi, and welcome again to Dropping the Gloves. My name is Lou Samaglia, a sophomore at Westfield State College.
And my name is Mike Giannatasio. I'm a sophomore at Suffolk University.
We're going to get right into it today. We got a bunch of great topics. We have steroids and where they belong in the Baseball Hall of Fame, concussions in the NFL, as well as a salary cap discussion in the NFL, some favorite Olympic moments, and some of our favorite and least favorite sports commentators. Mike, we'll get right into it. Mark McGwire with some of his recent revelations, if you want to call them revelations, admitting that he did indeed take steroids during the 90s, specifically during his 1998 home run record breaking season. Your thoughts?
You know, Lou, it's about time that he came out and told everyone that he did steroids. I've waited for this moment for 5 years. 5 years, and he just hid behind closed doors and just kind of denied it to everyone. I hope this thing just goes away for baseball. It's just an awful moment for baseball fans, for all MLB players, because you know more are going to come out. There's going to be more names released. And if I was the baseball writers, I would not vote any of these players, especially Mark McGwire, into the Hall of Fame.
That's where we differ the most on a lot of our issues, Mike, is where I think the steroid era being, an entire decade and a half, 2 decades almost, that encompassed so many players and so many teams and so many records were broken, where I think it's really hard to pinpoint someone like Mark McGwire, who really has become the poster child for this steroid usage. And for just a side note, this was not news to me at all, that he was, I don't know when people thought he was on steroids, like after he broke the home run record, but he was on them in 98. And to his credit, he did finally come out. He finally exercised these demons. So applause to him for that. But I think based on his body of work and the fact that you could say, we don't know for sure, but it's safe to assume we're talking 50%, at least. I think that's a low ballpark number of players who were on steroids during this era. And I think it's too hard just to say, Mark McGwire, we know you took steroids and you admitted it, so we're not going to let you into the Hall of Fame, despite, his upper echelon of baseball records.
Lou, I totally disagree with you here. Would he have hit 70 home runs if he did steroids? No way. He wouldn't have came close.
Well,
if you cheated on the game of baseball, you cannot be in the Hall of Fame. It's just that. It's like, what if I told you right now, hey, Lou, tomorrow I'm going to do steroids because I think I can be an MLB player and hit home runs. You just can't do that, and it's cheating. And any player that did steroids, absolutely, positively, does not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Mark McGwire was a great talent before he did steroids.
Yeah, but he was not a Hall of Famer before he did steroids.
We don't know this. These are things we don't know. This is where there's so much clouded back room type of discussions where Mark McGwire was the Rookie of the Year, and I believe it was 87 or 88 when he started. He was a great talent. He was a great power hitter regardless. Now, you can take it straight from the horse's mouth. You probably won't just because of the discussion. But Mark McGwire did say taking steroids did not help him hit home runs. You don't have to believe that if you don't want to.
Of course I don't.
I'm going to reserve my own judgment on this, but he said it helped him get healthy. His back was really nagging him his whole career. If he had a healthier back, who's to say he couldn't have done these things on his own?
That's just a bunch of...
It's a family show, Mike. Watch your language.
That is just so fake. Of course he's going to say that he did steroids to help improve his injury, if that's what you say. They're going to say that. They're not going to come on and say, I did steroids because it helped me hit home runs. Of course not.
Some people will. Some people have more or less come out and said that.
The only player I believe that did that was Ronnie Harrison for the Patriots.
Fair enough.
He's the only player that's been involved in the whole steroid scandal in sports that I believe actually only took steroids just for the fact that he wanted it to help his injury.
Now, what I would say to you is, do we just pretend Mark McGwire never played baseball? Do we take his records and say they're totally bogus, totally none of them should count at all?
Yes.
Okay, that's what you're saying. I think you just can't do that. I think it's too hard to actually say that. The guy's 8th all-time in home runs. He was a decent fielding first baseman. He's a Hall of Famer based on his numbers. And I'm not condoning the action of taking steroids under any kids. I'm not condoning steroids under any circumstances, but it's just too hard for me to say that because there's been cheaters and people who've bent the rules all through baseball, all through the history of baseball. Dizzy Dean had the spitball and all the way back that you can go. Barry Bonds, however, is a different case because he hasn't come out and admitted it. What Mark McGwire has done is he's really set the bar. He's set a principle now where other players are going to have to do this with their names under that giant, ugly asterisk. that Mark McGuire is finally trying to get rid of, or at least embrace to a point. It's just too hard for me to say that I can't include Mark McGuire's records. I can't include other players of that era because of they may or may not have taken steroids.
You just pointed out that you asked me if Mark McGuire's numbers should be forgotten. I think he even said the other day that, I called Mickey Mantle and I told him that he actually had the home run record, and it was fair. And he even stated to the whole media in the interview with Bob Costas that, I cheated on the game and maybe I don't deserve to have the home run record before Barry Bonds did it. And he even called Mickey Mantle and told him that, the record's yours.
Would you, what Mark McGuire has done, he did say he did call Roger Maris and he did all these things. But first of all, would you agree that he was great for baseball? What he did in 1998, I believe he resurrected baseball. It was dead in the water. It was the NHL a year or two ago. I think baseball was. I think Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa.
Yeah, Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa definitely got baseball back. All the fans followed Sosa and McGuire during their home run seasons where they were setting records all over the place. And I think fans will still watch baseball. A lot of them don't really care for the steroids, it seems. Fenway's filling up, always getting sold out. So I think maybe they did resurrect the game of baseball, but at the same time, I think they ruining it as well.
Sure. Also, I want to see your stance on this. You'll probably go the other way, but McGuire did say in 2005 at the congressional hearings on Capitol Hill, when he famously looked at the camera and said, "I don't want to talk about the past," and that was all the hoopla that created. Mm-hmm. He said recently in his interview with Bob Costas that he said he wanted to come clean that day on Capitol Hill 5 years ago, and his legal team wouldn't allow him. First of all, do you believe that? And would that have made a difference about his legacy?
I do believe that, but then again, why didn't he just come out a year or two later? Why did he have to wait 5 years to say all this?
Sure. I mean, I don't know the extent of his legal counseling or whatever they told him, that it might somehow save some face, which really is a huge legal gaffe. It ruined the guy's life and certainly his image for the last 5 years. I don't know. I take his word for it. He seems like a happier guy. He was on. The only reason
that he came out, I believe, is because he's the hitting coach for the Cardinals. And I think the St. Louis Cardinals, pushed him. They said, "Hey, if you want to become our hitting coach, you have to come out and tell the people that you did steroids, because they don't want any distractions in the clubhouse this year." So I think that's the only reason why he came out.
Really, you don't think this served him any personal
Absolutely
personal good? I think it has to. I think there's.
Why would he wait 5 years? Why didn't he say this 3 years
Why
ago?
did Pete Rose wait whatever it was, 20 years to say he gambled?
The steroid scandal is a lot worse, by the way, than Pete Rose, this gambling thing. He didn't cheat on the game. He never.
Technically speaking, it's not. Pete Rose is still banned from the game. Pete Rose can never be in the Hall of Fame.
I wish they would ban these steroid users. Why ban?
That's my main point. It's too hard. It's so widespread. Where it could have been the entire Red Sox team in 2004 when they won the World Series could have been juiced, and we'll never know. And it's just too hard. It's too hard to pinpoint. I just want to be fair to all the players who have done them or they haven't done them.
Okay. So you think, yes or no, should Mark McGuire be in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, I do. I believe his body of work speaks for itself. He has come clean. He's regretted it. I think it's just too hard. There's too many players. There could already be players in the Hall of Fame who have taken steroids. Mike Schmidt, for example, the great third baseman for the Phillies for all those years. He admitted to taking steroids. He's in the Hall of Fame. People generally don't talk too much about him. And I think if you come clean, I think people will forgive.
All right, so I think the whole thing right now you're saying is, if you do steroids, you get in the Hall of Fame.
Well, okay.
That's what I'm taking it right now.
Okay, that I guess is the other point I have to make. With Major League Baseball now, where it's starting to finally wane out, steroid using is finally starting to wane out, they have to police this like there is no tomorrow. Penalties should be as harsh as they can possibly
Definitely.
be. I would totally support a one strike and you're out policy. If you get called with steroids, you're done.
Absolutely.
I think I would have no problem with that. But Major League Baseball has to continue to clean up its image. It's doing a fine job, and I believe a new commissioner is coming in. I think Bud Selig's on the way out. But Major League Baseball has to keep track of this, and they have to absolutely just nix it.
Now, I got one more question on this topic. Do you think they should release all the players that did it?
Absolutely. At the beginning, I would have said no, but now that they've started to leak names, this is where I think it's not fair to whoever came out first. I think Roger Clemens and Andy Pettit. of course they did them, and people deserve to know, but now that names are out, every single name should be released. I don't know how these names get out, but it's not fair to the people who do get released.
Okay, I agree with you there, Lou, but I don't agree with steroid users being allowed in the Hall of Fame. That's where we have our disagreements.
We'll leave it at that.
All right, moving on now to round two. Lou, a lot of concussions in the NFL. Look at Ted Johnson, former Patriots player, coming out and saying, my brain's like shattered. What do you think about the concussions in the NFL? Is the NFL doing a good job handling these players?
This, I think, is the NFL's biggest weakness. Mm-hmm. I believe the NFL is an incredibly strong league. Everything they do, they have a great union all the way down. Their league is the strongest out of all the professional leagues. They make the most revenue all the way down. This is their one problem. They have to take care of this. There's been players, I know Mike Webster from all those great 70s Steelers teams, the center, he committed suicide. He had so much brain trauma and depression, all these things that were related to collisions in the NFL. And this is the NFL's one problem. They have to do this. They have to have some sort of plan for players when they retire. And also, they have implemented some new schemes and strategies for players who are playing today who get hurt. I believe it's if you exhibit any sign of a concussion, you're out for the day, unless, I want to get the wording correct on this, unless once symptoms are gone, you can come back at your own discretion, which I think that's certainly a policy they're going to have to change.
I agree, and I read a story a couple months ago where I was absolutely shocked. I was so shocked. And the stat the reporter gave was the average NFL football player only lives until the age of 55.
Right.
And I had no idea about that until I read this article, and I was shocked about it. But at the same time, these NFL players, they sign up for the job. They're getting paid millions of dollars. They know that this can't happen. So, that's where I kind of say, if you sign up to play for the NFL Football League, that concussions may be something that can happen to you, so you got to deal with that.
Sure, and I think on the flip side, the players do sign up to play football. Well, not even sign up. They're very privileged to play in the NFL, first of all. But what they're going to do, the NFL is really Commissioner Roger Goodell has come out and said that there's so much pressure for the players to be responsible and to admit or to come out and say they have a concussion. And a lot of times they're just not going to do that. Mm-hmm. Players aren't going to say, I don't want to play anymore, my head hurts. They're not going to do that, especially in the NFL. They're going to come out and they're going to play. They got their bell rung or not, they're going to keep playing.
And a lot of the coaches put pressures on the players too and saying, if you better not get injured or we'll bench you for the rest of the season.
Exactly. With players like that, they're not going to admit they're hurt. And that's what so much of this new policy relies on. And that's not going to work. Yeah. I think there needs to be something, if you exhibit any signs, you should just be sat for a week or something along those lines. And I'm not an expert on concussions, of course, but whatever would seem fitting. How many great careers have been ended because of concussions?
Exactly.
Steve Young and Troy Aikman.
Yep.
They have to do something about it, and I think they need a much firmer policy than the one they have now.
And, there's definitely something wrong when the average football player is only living until their mid-50s.
Yeah, no one's signing up for that.
Absolutely not. And, football players, they only play a few years in the NFL. The average football player, I believe, plays maybe 3 or 4 years in the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's like 2.8 years is the average for NFL players.
It's ridiculous, and something has to be done for the NFL. Because we can't be seeing players dying in their mid-50s.
Yeah. The stats are staggering. there's NFL players, NFL players have rates of dementia and manic depression that's 3 to 5 times higher than that of normal Americans, which really, this is the NFL's only PR really black spot. They have to fix it.
Yeah.
They have to fix it.
Because in 20 years from now, we still want football to be a sport, and maybe a lot of people aren't going to be,
yeah.
Hey, I don't want to play football because, I could get a concussion, I might have depression problems after, and I might not live long after. So.
Right, and that's, I think, one of the greatest quotes I've heard actually is from Ron Jaworski, the ESPN analyst. He said, the only way the NFL can fail is if it rots from the inside out.
Absolutely.
And that's something like this can certainly do that, can start to erode what the NFL has built.
Definitely. All right, moving on now to round 3. Lou, the Olympics coming up, February 12th in Vancouver, 2010 Olympics. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, it's a great time of year.
It really is. What are your favorite Olympic moments? We've seen so many since
the
Olympics started.
It's really, for the Olympics is really an incredible spectacle. With all the countries competing against each other and just the greatest athletes in the world. It's an impressive sight. With that being said, there are some that certainly stand out. For me, I would have to say just very recently in '08 in Beijing.
Definitely.
Seeing Michael Phelps win 8 gold medals, just really, it's incredible to say. To think someone can go with the greatest athletes in the world and win the gold 8 times. That's just mind-bending to think about that. And for me, that is the greatest performance, individual or team, that I think we'll see probably for a very long time, and we have seen up to this point.
I have that for my number 2 favorite Olympic moment. My number 1 favorite moment was, without a doubt, the United States hockey team winning the Olympic gold medal in 1980 against the Soviet. Just unbelievable. No one expected it. They played them in an exhibition game before the gold medal game, and they lost 10-3. And then to come back and beat them 4-3 in that game just really changed like the whole nation. It really did. Everyone was watching that game. There were a lot of problems going on in society, and to see the United States hockey team win that game was definitely my favorite Olympic moment.
Absolutely. I think it can go both ways. Certainly there's no right or wrong answer here. That hockey team, they did so much more than win a hockey game, and I think that's what made that so incredible. Beating that Soviet team that had never lost in however many years it was, and they
bunch of college kids.
Yeah, exactly. The story itself was fantastic. But I think as far as just individually performing, I think it's hard to top Michael Phelps. Just beating just so many great athletes, to do what he did, to win a gold medal in the Olympics is as good as it gets. To win 8 is just beyond comprehension. It's an incredible feat, really. It is.
And he won 8 in 2004 too. In essence, he won 6 gold medals and 2 bronze.
2 bronze, really.
And so who knows what he's going to do in the next Olympics?
Yeah, he said he was going to tone it down a little bit. I don't think he'll be doing 8 events, but either way, I think certainly in our lifetime, he's the greatest Olympian we've seen.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's hard to say.
Can't disagree with that.
Yep.
What would your third favorite Olympic moment be?
Third, that's a huge toss-up, but what I did look into was in 1936, Jesse Owens. He won, I believe it was 4 gold medals in Berlin at the height of Hitler's Aryan regime, which was really, I think that goes right along with that 1980 team, where it did so much culturally in the world and specifically in the United States. For him to go out there with so much courage in Berlin, such an angry place in the world at that time, that was really an incredible feat to see him do that and to beat all of Hitler's super athletes and whatever else he had. I think really that is my third favorite. I think that was one I really enjoyed researching and looking up.
Now, my third favorite Olympic moment is probably an obvious one. It's the 1992 and the whole 90s Dream Team winning the gold medal. They just dominated the Olympics. They had so much hype coming into the Olympics, and so much was expected of them, and they definitely responded to the pressure, and they just pretty much, lack of a better word, dominated every team in the Olympics. And seeing Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, 3 of my favorite old-time NBA players, just play basketball on the same team and just destroy all the teams. So it's definitely just awesome and a tremendous moment for the Olympics.
Absolutely, and I think there's one we left out as well. Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. Always, not all Olympic moments are good. That was fun to watch too.
You don't have to include that.
That was fun to watch too. All right, we'll move on to the next one here. Mike, this is one we've been talking about for a while. We're finally bringing it to the show here. Sports announcers. They're everywhere. They're on every single game we watch. They're really, sometimes you don't always think about them, but they're always there. Mike, who are your favorites?
Lou, we really disagree on this subject.
We certainly do.
We really do.
Thanks for great television.
My favorites. Just let me finish this first. Okay. I know you have a lot to say about Joe Buck. Yep. Joe Buck, I think he's a great announcer. I know a lot of people at home watching, think he's awful and terrible when they watch him on Fox. I think he does the job, and I think Tim McCarver's it's phenomenal. I think Tim McCarver's a great commentator as well. Least favorite, not gonna lie, locals. I'm not a fan of Don Orsello of Nesson. I think anyone can just do his job. I don't know what's so great about him. Jerry Remy's fine. He brings a lot to the table, but basically the whole Nesson crew. Besides Jerry Remy, Dennis Eckersley, and I mentioned one more from Nesson.
Dave Roberts.
Dave Roberts is okay, but basically all the males at Nesson, I just really don't like them at all.
Fair enough. All right, now it's my turn. Tim McCarver is awful. All right, I'm going to start with that. Tim McCarver is not good. I have no problem with Joe Buck, though. There's some common ground there. I don't mind Joe Buck. He calls a decent football game, too.
Yep.
Tim McCarver's awful. Joe Morgan is awful.
I agree.
Again, this is good objective reporting on my part here, but Tim McCarver, I'm not a fan at all.
Why? I just want to know.
Why? I'm glad you asked, Mike. Well, I did some research here. I found some actual quotes from Tim McCarver. These are good. These are good. Here's one. This is an actual quote from Tim McCarver. Something to keep in mind, it's raining lightly. The infield could be very wet. Let's see, another one here. After David Ortiz hit a home run into right field in Game 5 of the 2004 ALCS, after Ortiz hit the home run, McCarver said, Mount Everest erupts again. Mount Everest is a mountain, not a volcano. Also, in 2006, Tim McCarver said, pitching is such a vital part of the game as far as winning is concerned. So I have a problem with Tim McCarver.
So he makes 3 funny lines,
I got more.
And you don't like him because of that?
I got more. I think he is just the master of the understatement. He just says everything the same over and over again. He's constantly wrong with his facts and his details on stories. He's just, I don't know. I just think he's very.
I think he's great. I don't know. I just enjoy listening to him. I don't know why. I think it's better than listening to Don Orsillo and Jerry Remy. We all know how they just go off and just talk about their own personal life.
See, I don't have a problem with that.
But it doesn't matter. No, I don't really care to listen about Jerry Remy, what he did like that in the day, and he's just bringing that up in the game.
See, I don't care about it. They do a very good job of. I think they're first of all, Orsillo. I think is a great play-by-play guy. He's contracted.
Anyone can do his job. I could sit there and just announce the game. That's what he's just.
Orsillo's contracted nationally by TBS to do the playoffs, which I think he does a very good job. He's nationally recognized. He does a very good job. I think he's a very solid play-by-play guy, and I think the main point with Orsillo is him and Remy have a great chemistry. And I think that's what makes them successful.
I think Remy's a little full of himself, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Remy's a great.
I don't know. I
think Remy is a fantastic.
I think Dennis Eggersley's great.
Really?
I love Eggersley.
I'm not an Eggersley fan.
I like the announcing commentators that aren't afraid to say what's on their mind. That's what I like. I don't like the suck-up announcers at all. Like, I think Don Orsillo, he never criticizes the Red Sox. If you listen to a game, he'll never criticize them.
I think
Joe Buck will always criticize, and I think that's why a lot of people around here don't like them, is because I remember a couple years ago he made a lot of bad remarks against the Red Sox when they were playing the Yankees.
Sure, but I think the other side is Joe Buck is a nationally contracted commentator. He does for every team. He really doesn't have room for bias. Don Orsillo's the Red Sox color guy. And you can look all over the sports world. Tommy Heinsohn is biased towards the Celtics. You can look all around. Jack Edwards and the Bruins.
He's great.
I'm a big Jack fan.
Yeah, me too.
He's a fan. I think overall it's refreshing to see him. He gets excited about Bruins games just like everyone watching at home. I think with Orsillo, he's a little dry at times, but I think he's very good at what he does. And I think he works very well with Remy, who I think really is a very underrated color man. I think I'm surprised he hasn't gotten contacted for a national job.
Yeah, and Jack Edwards was actually the one I had forgotten. He was the only other male announcer that I liked on NESN.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of national people I like too, and I'm just going to give you my favorite national commentators for each sport. For basketball, definitely Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley always says what's on his mind. He's very entertaining to watch on TNT. I love Charles Barkley. For baseball, you might agree with me here. It's Peter Gammons. I love the insight Peter Gammons provides. He's just a tremendous commentator.
Coming to NESN, actually.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's great. I can't wait to watch him.
Yep.
For football, I'm going to say the CBS team. I love Kawa, Dan Marino. They just provide, great information before the game. I like them much better than the Fox crew, the Fox 25.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of this. And for hockey, Barry Melrose on ESPN.
Barry's great. I'm all about Gary Thorne, too.
Gary Thorne's good.
Gary Thorne and Bill Clement call a very good game for hockey national games.
And for hockey, no, I already said hockey. Did I get them all?
I believe you did.
Okay.
You call that? Well, basketball as well as a few other sports. Mike Tirico is really, I think he can do any sport. He's fantastic. He's very good at what he does. Certainly, he calls a great golf round. He does a lot of things well. Won't lie, I'm not a negative person, but there's a lot more announcers I don't like than I do like. And I'm going to go down that list now. McCarver and Joe Morgan top the list. There's no question about that. They're the undisputed kings of just horrible reporting. Again, if they're offering jobs out there somewhere else in the media world, I'm just kidding. John Madden, I'm not a fan of John Madden at all. God bless him, he's retired now, but I think he was right along with them. He was just kind of he was along for the ride, but I didn't think he was much of a. He didn't bring much to the table. Billy Packer did all those college basketball games for years and years, and he was just an angry old man. He didn't bring much to the table. He was very negative. It doesn't make for a good game. Bill Walton. Bill Walton seems like a very nice guy, and he came over the debilitating speech impediment that he had, which is impressive, but he is like, I've read a lot of
You
things.
don't like Bill Walton?
I don't like Bill Walton.
I disagree with that.
He's the king of hyperbole. Like, I've looked up some other quotes from him too. There was one a few years ago. Tony Parker of the San Antonio Spurs had an errant pass, and I think Walton said it was like the worst pass in Western civilization, all of history. Like, he says all these crazy things, and he's kind of entertaining, but at the same time, I don't think he's much of a color commentator.
I disagree. I love Walton, and it's just like Dick Vitale. You know, they're very always enthusiastic, and that's what I like. I like to see the commentators always be enthusiastic and loud and stuff. That's what's entertaining about watching them.
Within reason. I think what makes people like Dick Vitale and Bill Walton and Jack Edwards different is Walton and Vitale are almost a little too cartoonish for me. I think specifically Dick Vitale. He's just he almost doesn't even add anything anymore. It's almost he's just yelling fictional words.
I think it'll be better than, have you ever flipped the channel? You know how the Atlanta Braves always televise on PBS?
Yep.
They're brutal, those commentators, the announcing commentators. They're so boring to watch. I can't watch it. I just can't watch the Braves on
That's
PBS.
where I feel like we almost take Orsillo and Remy for granted. Watching other local feeds, I know there's some Chicago network that comes in too, and we can watch Cub games every now and then. They're not that great either. I think the Red Sox team, as far as a local affiliate team, they're really probably one of the best out there, if not the best.
Okay, Lou, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who's your favorite all-time announcing commentator?
All-time, Al Michaels.
Al Michaels?
I love Al Michaels. He calls a great game, but he called that 1980 Olympic game. He's actually an interesting piece of trivia for you. He's the only guy who's ever called a Super Bowl, a World Series, a Stanley Cup, and an NBA Final, which I think is really impressive. And he's done them all very well. Very classy guy.
That's great.
How about you?
I'm going to actually go with the radio here. Local guy, Jerry Trupiano. Way back, and it's gone. I love Jerry Trupiano, and I thought he's really great on the radio. So I'm going to have to go with
We did have a great radio team, too, with Castiglione and Trupiano. It's too bad they're not together anymore, but they called a great game as well. And as Red Sox fans, it's been real nice to have them both around.
Absolutely.
All right, I think we can move on to our next topic here, and that is, should the NFL raise the salary cap from what it is now? I know they've been kicking around ideas whether or not to have a salary cap at all, whether to have a higher salary cap. What's your stance on this, Mike?
I have mixed opinions about this. For one reason, I think they should, and for another, I don't think they should. I think my first reason is I think they should because for the salaries of players. I think no player. I've always said this for years. Maybe we should talk about this. I don't think any player deserves to make millions of dollars to play a sport.
Right. Yep.
And for that reason, there should be a salary cap. Because no player, Tom Brady, he's great. He's a quarterback. He's great, but he doesn't deserve to make $10 million to go out there and throw a football or not. I just can't stand the ridiculous salaries professional athletes make. But why I think they also shouldn't be a salary cap is because I think the NFL makes a lot of money throughout their throughout TV. 80% actually. I looked it up. 80% of their revenue comes from TV.
Yep.
And that's another reason why there shouldn't be a salary cap. But I have mixed opinions on it. I really don't know which way I should go.
Right, and I think the NFL should raise the salary cap, and I'm on a slightly different plane than you here. I think I'm a big fan of the parity. I enjoy the fact that any team can win any given year. And it can still happen where a team like the Patriots can still dominate over the course of 4 or 5 years. Where I think you have to do it the old-fashioned way. You have to get really good management. You can't buy wins in the NFL, and I think it should stay that way. Specifically because it's such a huge marketing juggernaut and so many people do watch. They get so much revenue from all the fans. I think they should keep doing that. But you don't want to have cities like Detroit, like Cleveland, big markets like that where they're just going to toil in the cellar year after year, which they've been doing anyway. But at least they have a chance. They have a chance to make a run. Both teams are on they're on the right direction. They're on the right path. I think with markets like that, you want to keep that parity. You want to keep the hope alive. And you don't want to have teams, I know it's difficult for us to say, but probably naturally, people don't like the Patriots, probably because they keep winning.
Yeah, exactly.
And they keep winning under the same fair circumstances as everyone else. And I think that bothers a lot of people.
And yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think people want to see teams buy championships. You can point to baseball. A lot of people always say the Yankees buy rings, because they have so many players that they just pay so much money to. And in the NFL, we really haven't come to that. You really can't say the Patriots bought championships when they won 3
because they can't. You legally can't.
Yeah, exactly. NFL. And you never want that to come to the NFL as well.
Right, and I think that's what makes the NFL so great. That's what makes it, when it comes right down to it, it makes it better than the other leagues. I think it's hard to argue that otherwise. The NFL, we've already talked about it, but they're so solid all the way around. What the NFL does with the salary cap, with a somewhat modest salary cap in relation to the other ones, of course they're all still making too much money, but that's not going to change. I think to have this salary cap where it is, to raise it would just be, I think it would be unwise at this point. You just want to keep having teams have to manage and have to kind of play money ball a little bit to get players in, keep them for a year or two, and then move them out. It's just that's the nature of the beast at this point. That's the business.
And I agree. And Lou, I just have a question for you. Do you think these NFL players, do you think they deserve all the salaries they're making, all the money they're making?
No, I don't think anyone deserves that much. I mean, certainly there's far more deserving people than that. There's
definitely.
cops and firemen and
we should actually have a discussion about this next show.
We absolutely should. I think the servicemen and women in the armed forces certainly deserve a lot more money than a professional football player or baseball player or basketball player. Teachers, you can go all the way down. There's a lot more honorable professions certainly than throwing a baseball or kicking a football or what have you. But I don't know, what's your stance on that?
I've always had a big stance on this. I can't stand the fact that all these players make millions of dollars to play sports. I take it as they have the easiest job in the world. They stay in high-class hotels. They have people coming up to them asking for autographs and pictures. They just have such a great lifestyle. And to be also getting paid millions of dollars for it as well, it's just ridiculous. They go out and perform maybe 3 hours, 4 hours a night, and they got 5 months of off-season in some sports. And some players, what I also hate is that they're just so greedy. Most of them are. Most of them, it's all about money. I can't stand the players that say, football is a business, baseball is a business.
That's right. My main problem, the one I look to the most, is Michael Crabtree, rookie for the San Francisco 49ers this season. He held out. He was the 10th pick in the overall draft. He did not play until the middle of the season because he didn't think he was going to be getting paid enough in his contract. A rookie who had never played a down in the National Football League was upset at his lack of pay, which of course was still a monstrous contract. Money, we're probably never going to see. Tens of millions of dollars. He was upset and actually refused to play.
It's ridiculous.
In the National Football League and he hadn't even played a down yet. Things like that bother me. It's almost disrespectful it is disrespectful to the fans and the people who do pay his salaries.
I agree. And people are starving across the road, and we have these players saying, I want $5 million, not $3 million, not $7 million, excuse me. And to do that, it's just disgraceful. It really is. And to go watch these players make millions of dollars and just complain that they're not making too much, I just can't do it.
Just a little side story here. I know time's running out. Recently, I think Vince Wilfork and a couple of the Patriots players were expressing their dismay with the Foxborough crowd booing them in their playoff exit. What are your stance on that? Personally, I think if you're going to demand respect and admiration from your fans, you probably shouldn't get killed in the first round of the playoffs. And again, these are the people who are paying your salary. You probably shouldn't go offend them. What are your thoughts on that?
The fans had every right to boo them. They really did. Even Tom Brady said it in his interview after he was asked about that. What did you think of the fans booing you? And he said, if I was a fan too, I would have booed us too. That's what he said.
Yep.
And I don't know why Vince Wilfork would make that comment. I really have no idea why he would say that, because if you're a fan, you have every right to go out there and boo if your team's not performing the way you want them to be performing.
You're paying hundreds of dollars for a ticket to sit and see these guys play. You don't want to see them just get embarrassed like that in the first round of the playoffs by a team you probably could have beaten and probably should have beaten. A lot of people expected you to beat.
Kiefer Sutherland did. I don't know.
Yeah, well, he got caught wearing a dress on Letterman. A man of his word. But I just think it's ridiculous that these things come out.
I agree.
I think that pretty much wraps it up here for this installment of Dropping the Gloves. Thanks again for watching. I'm Lou Samaglia.
I'm Mike Chantasio. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, Lou.
Absolutely, Mike. Take it easy.